CEO of your company, you have a specific way that you like things to be done. Maybe not rules exactly, but more like there are lines you don't cross, values that are very strong for you. It might be something about the way your clients get treated, or when it's good enough to go out the door or to be presented to a client, or when you'd rather lose a sale than take it. And you might not have written it down, you may have, but you just never needed to because you've always been the one deciding. And you train your team, you try to explain it to them, you give them context, they've watched you do it for years, you've discussed why you've made your decisions. And then somebody on your team makes a call that you wouldn't have made. And it wasn't necessarily careless. They thought about it, they had a reason, but it was a wrong reason in your mind. And you found yourself thinking, how do they just not know by now what it was supposed to be? It's really simple. Hi, I'm Sarah Paikai, and I have worked with thousands of CEOs who have asked me that very question, sometimes week over week. And I have been doing this for a long time, over 15 years. I've worked with thousands of companies across dozens of industries, ranging in revenue from 5, 6, 7, 8, and even 9-figure business owners. And this is not an uncommon question. This is a question that happens no matter how big or small your team is, no matter how much money you are or aren't making. And so today, I'm going to go through with you some of the things that you can do to better document your IP and what I call systemize your intellectual property so that it is not so overwhelming and chaotic and you're not left wondering, why can't people keep up? It's not that hard. It was very obvious. And no, I'm not judging you. If you ever thought those things, I have too, so it's totally fine. All right, so in previous videos, you have seen me talk a little bit about any one of these digital post-its, depending on where you came into this series. And if you have not seen the first one where I explain what these 4 are very loosely, I would watch that one at the very least, because it's important to understand kind of where we are in this map as we dive in. So there are 2 pieces that I really like to think about. And this is for all of you CEOs where you're very context heavy. You care about decisions being made, why things matter. You love to give explanations. You might not love to give explanations, but even if you don't love it, you do. You give a lot of explanations around how things worked or didn't work. People would consider you a great mentor. You feel like you spend a lot of time explaining yourself, sometimes to no end because people just don't get it, and or you can't come to a resolution that feels right? So if that's you, this is your style, and this video is for you. If this is not you and you're much more the math person, this video is still for you because it will show you where you have to counterbalance all of your logic trains and all of that goodness that you have going on with the math in your head and the logic, okay? So I like to look at this in 2 levels. The first is through the ideation of a philosophy. And then it is the frameworks that happen underneath the philosophy that roll back into philosophy. One philosophy, and you can have multiple frameworks potentially. But in this example, I'm going to talk about one philosophy to one framework. But just keep in mind, you can have one philosophy and multiple frameworks, as long as you can show how the frameworks all roll back into the core philosophy and make it so. So a philosophy is something that the CEO will not bend on. So this is an idea that they have that they will defend based on both their values and their lived experience. That's really, really, really important. If they can't do both, if they can't say this isn't, or all 3 things, here's a very clear, simple idea that I have. It might not be that simple, but here's a clear idea that can be talked about in 2 to 3 sentences. And I can defend this idea based on my personal values and name what those are, and my lived experience and my expertise in this area that proves these 2 to 3 sentences to be true, then it's not a philosophy. It's probably a framework or just some ideas or research that you've done, or it's most likely a framework. A philosophy is able to be defensible and able to be the core through line of everything that you're doing within the company and why. So for example, in this series, I've been using a bakery as an example. So the core philosophy might be something like the CEO really believes that life is meant to be savored and enjoyed, that delight should be easily accessed, And that when you are partaking in a sweet treat, which I personally love to do, so I've got a lot of lived personal experience as a customer of this fictitious CEO. But when you're enjoying a sweet treat, or that it should be pure delight. That delight should come through all forms of the senses when you are in their bakery. Okay, so that's a good example of a philosophy. Now, a framework, on the other hand, is that same level of conviction, but it's a threshold on it. There's some kind of math or structure that allows somebody else to properly interpret and to pick up that philosophy in a particular situation and to use it. So, for example, let's say that philosophy is exactly what I said for the baker. A framework might be something like a very common one, right? FIFO, first in, first out. The first ingredients that come into the kitchen are the first ones that go out of the kitchen, that are cooked and baked and served. Again, if you're in the restaurant or the baking industry, please don't judge me. I've done it. It was a very long time ago. All right. I'm just trying to give the simplest analogy here, because I think everybody has gone to a bakery or restaurant that they really liked. So a framework for their philosophy might be first in, first out, to make sure that they always have the freshest ingredients, which then allows for, remember, it rolls up into the philosophy that it should delight all the senses, that you should be able to be immersed in it, that you should be able to find the small joys in life. How can you do that with stale bread? It's just not doable. That's one of the frameworks. Another framework might be something for maybe for their customer service, like that they greet with a smile, that they say that they open and close with something pleasant. So they, hi, how are you? And thank you so much. That there's an open closer. Like that might be how they train their front of staff. There might be a separate framework for that. There might be a separate framework for even the types of desserts that they decide to keep within the bakery. So they might have whatever her specialty is. They might have baked goods. They might have ones that are like a grab and to go. They might have ones that are cold desserts. I just, again, please don't judge me. But you get the point. Those are three different types of frameworks. They can all roll back into the philosophy. They can all show how they allow the philosophy to happen and to be developed within a business. Let's do another one. Let's do one that is maybe it's like a fleet of mobile mechanics. So mechanics that come to your house, and there's one CEO and he's got, I don't know, 8 mechanics, and they all go to the house. Okay. So maybe the philosophy is that really great high quality care for your automobile should also be fast and cost effective, right? Convenient, fast, cost effective. And that's really important to him, that you don't go to somewhere where they're trying to upcharge you, or they're overpriced, or they say that they're there for your oil, but then they take 3 hours because they're also trying to look for something else that they can sell you when they come to the front of the house, when they come back with your keys, or your report, because that's how they make their money. They want no, we should just go to the customer. We should get it solved. We should give good quality advice, do what we can. And that's the philosophy of how be in integrity. We're not trying to upsell them on anything. We're just trying to fix as many cars as possible. That's a good example of a philosophy. A framework might be something like the first thing we do, we go in and we do an initial diagnosis. So it might be like their consultation framework. We come in, we do a diagnosis. We do a check on like what things pass for, like what is safe, what's not, we do some research. We research how much it's going to cost them, and then we give them a quote. That's like, duh, right? Like if you're a mechanic, I'm so sorry, because I have butchered your profession beyond this, but you get the concept, okay? You get the vibe. But also, not only that, there could be frameworks around how to diagnose each individual type of problem based off of what the customer has said they're calling them for, or the make or model of a car, or the degree of difficulty, and all of those types of things. So they would have multiple frameworks. That would be even how to like get an appointment booked, and to make sure that you are communicating, how you follow up with them after you send out an invoice. That might be a different framework of, here's the overarching pillars that we abide by. All of them roll back up into the philosophy that is, we're not here to upsell. We're just here to fix as many cars as possible, as quickly as possible, for to make it convenient and easy to access and affordable. Okay, that's a really good example of a philosophy into frameworks. Let's do one where it's a little bit more, let's say that they're an agency and that they're a marketing agency. This is much more my wheelhouse. So, so they're a marketing agency. Their philosophy might be something like, really great creative doesn't feel like advertising. It feels entertaining and it feels inviting. And it feels like it's interesting for the person, the specific person you're trying to reach. That might be the philosophy of the agency owner. The frameworks underneath it could be things like how to write a framework around how to write really great copy, a framework around how to diagnose what's happening on any of the social media platforms and to decide, like a framework might be around like strategy, how to come up with a really good winning strategy. A framework might be super like the metrics that are important to measure in this fashion, right? Frameworks are all these individual things. So they're the same conviction of this overarching philosophy that has some kind of threshold, so some kind of constraint, some kind of shaping, some kind of math, an acronym, a sequence, something on top of it that makes it so that somebody else can pick it up and use it, but also that it still wraps back into the philosophy and allows the philosophy to be true and to be the through line that really rings across a company. In a nonprofit organization, the philosophy might be something like your mission or your vision or your mission statement, right? Really the thing that rings true for the organization as a whole. And then the frameworks would be like, here's all the different ways that we practically go about. These are the models that we use to practically go about rolling out that philosophy and there. So the test is always to see if every framework can roll back up into the philosophy it enforces. So why is that important? Why is it important to have this? What does this have to do with systemizing your intellectual property? And I talk in the first video about how most people think just process documentation. When you're thinking about scaling your business, when you're thinking about not being the bottleneck, when you think about really cataloging your IP, people are thinking like the how-to checklist. How do we do all these things and why do we do it? The philosophy is really important because it is the unique reason, it is a unique through line, it is a unique anchor that everything can pass back through and go. That's all great. So the math that I talk about in a different video about the key process types is great. And the process documentation is great. And the cube outlines and like trying to think strategically how we are standardizing the cost of everything that is being done and blah, blah, blah. That's amazing. That's awesome. The thing that makes you unique, though, the most unique part of what really makes your intellectual property sing is the philosophy that you have and your framework. Sometimes the values of the company can also be a framework, right? Sometimes the values of the company can be the entire philosophy of the company. It really just depends. It is the question you have to ask yourself is, what is the one thing that I can explain in 2 to 3 sentences that is absolutely a non-negotiable for this company, the reason why this company even exists? And how do I make a case around that? Like I could defend this till the cows come out. Every soapbox, every lived experience, every thought process, every framework all rolls into this core distillation of this philosophy that I have. Sometimes it could even be a theory that you're testing, right? Like the reason why you started this company to begin with was to see if you could hit this particular outcome within X, and we were really just trying to drive for the outcome to see if that's something true that could be done. So like a school's philosophy potentially could be something around shaping the great minds of tomorrow, who in turn go back and contribute to the next generation of the workforce that's coming through in these particular sectors. That's an example of, are they actually able to do that? I don't know. but that's their guiding light, right? This is the reason why they exist and what they're trying to do. All the other frameworks of how they might go about implementing programs or deciding on funding or deciding on how they choose their staff or how they choose their curriculum or all those things, those all roll up into and support the overarching philosophy that exists of really how you intend to make that difference. So I hope that's helpful. If you're a person who loves words, this is probably really easy for you. If you're a person who loves math, this might be a little bit more difficult. I really would suggest that you think about 2 to 3 sentences that just say, if there was only one thing, like if I package this business to sell it tomorrow or in a year from now, and even if you don't ever plan to sell, if you put that on, if I package this and I sold it tomorrow, what is the opening statement that I would make to say, here is the exact reason why this business is amazing and has potential? Okay, so if you're a math logic person, I would encourage you to start there. Once you have that, you can kind of think, okay, so what are the repeatable frameworks that I have that I consider are very important that would roll up into this philosophy, that get the clients the outcome that we believe and that we're giving them through our company?